Slide is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll start. Last class we discussed fundamentals of tensile behavior, where we have discussed how to calculate or how to find out different tensile parameters from load elongation and stress strain diagram. Today we will discuss specific to fabric now. Before that, couple of things which come normally in case of a woven fabric tensile properties. First one is fabric assistance. So what is written in the first line is the formula used to calculate fabric assistance. Fabric assistance means fabric strength per thread. Means when we carry out a tensile test of a fabric, we first cut a strip. The strip can be either in warp direction or in weft direction. For example, if it is in warp direction, let's say in the strip we have 100 threads. Then we measure the strength of that fabric strip which has 100 threads. Let's say you got 100 kg, the strength of the fabric. Then measure the strength of each thread. Then multiplied by 100, that will give you this denominator, single yarn strength. So fabric strength per thread, single yarn strength means the thread from which this fabric is made, it is always greater than 1. Normally we express it in percentage. We call it fabric assistance percentage. So question arises, why this increase? Because when we are measuring strength of a fabric either in warp direction or wave direction, we are measuring basically strength of yarn in that direction. But why the strength of all the yarns in one direction in the fabric is higher than the strength of yarn only? This fact is called fabric assistance, and this assistance occurs due to some of the parameters or reasons which is mentioned here. Number 1, yarn to yarn friction. We call it inter-yarn friction. It is basically the friction between warp and weft, or even between warp or between weft also. And as you know, friction is basically a function of contact area. So contact area will depend on yarn diameter and extent of flattening of yarn, which we have already seen in the geometry. When yarn goes to fabric at crossover points, yarn gets flattened. It is no more a circular cross section. It is converted to different cross section, elliptical or racetrack or rugby football. So yarn gets flattened. That means contact area increases. So this frictional force, which is responsible for increase in strength, that is called fabric assistance, is due to the diameter of yarn and extent of flattening of yarn at the contact point. These two things influence the extent of gripping of yarn at the crossover points. So gripping is basically because of the friction. Friction is due to contact area. Contact area is influenced by yarn diameter and yarn flattening. Some other factor also influence this fabric assistance, like weave design, because weave design will decide number of contact points per unit area. If it is plain woven, this contact point interlacement, number of interlacement point per unit area is highest. If it is twill, satin, other weaves, maybe the number of intersection or contact points per unit area of the fabric goes down. Thread spacing, higher is the number of EPI or PPI, then inter-yarn friction will be more. And also many other weave factors, weave design, thread spacing, crimp, all these things. So whatever fabric parameter influence the contact area between yarns, it could be between warp and weft or between warp or between weft, they all will contribute to fabric assistance. Now, these are some of the further fundamental things we have to understand before we really proceed for a theoretical interpretation of tensile strength. So just I'll read these points and I'll also try to explain you, try to understand these. Tensile properties of woven fabric involves various problems and complexities. Why? The reason is cloth has a modulus which varies considerably with strain. If you increase or decrease the strain rate, the rate at which you will extend the fabric, the modulus will change. Second point, the variation in initial modulus is very large. This point you will realize when I will just after 2-3 slides I will discuss load elongation characteristics curve of a fabric. Initial modulus means, I have told you last class, modulus means resistance to deformation. So initial modulus means initial resistance to deformation. When a fabric is extended either in warp or wave direction, the initial resistance to deformation varies in different fabric. Reason being, it depends on so many things. Primarily, it depends on inter-yarn friction, and next it depends on crimp in the yarn, and next it depends on yarn properties, means yarn mechanical properties. So to begin with, the modulus of a fabric has a wide variation. Second point, the modulus in warp and weft direction differ, obviously. As you know, crimp in warp and weft are different. Because cloth is not symmetrical as a rule. This point we have discussed several times. Woven constructions are anisotropic. They are not isotropic. We get maximum properties of a fabric either in warp or weft direction. We call it principal direction. If you measure the properties in bias direction, it will be different. It will be less. Third point, any extension which takes place at an angle to the warp and weft, usually of a higher order, also it involves different other mechanism of deformation. That means, which you will see immediately in the next slide, when we try to extend a fabric in warp and weft, we always get higher properties than in bias direction. See why it is. This is the middle one, tension in just, let's say, warp direction. This is at angle. Here it is at certain angle. When the tension is applied at certain angle, let's say tangentially for here example, then there is a shear force involved. In this case, there is no shear force. So that is what written here. The modulus at an angle, say 45 degree, is completely determined by shear behavior, because when the fabric will extended at certain angle, there will be a slippage at crossover points. So slippage at crossover points between warp and weft is dependent on how much shear force is exerted. So the deduction of fabric behavior can be made by considering the geometrical changes during extension. If you want to find out the deduction of fabric behavior means, if you want to find out or if you want to express what will be the deformation mathematically, then what we have to consider is the geometrical changes during extension. For example, you are all acquainted with this geometry of a plain woven fabric. And let's say I am applying a load in this warp direction. Look at my cursor, warp direction. So when the load will be applied in this warp direction, all the geometrical parameter will change. H will change, L will change, theta will change. That means with application of a load on the fabric, we can express the changes or the deformation. Change is nothing but deformation in the fabric with the help of geometrical changes. So that is what written here. Second point, it is possible to deduce the tensile properties of woven fabric from the properties of the constituent yarn and fiber structure. So coming to actual problem now. This is a load extension diagram of a plain woven fabric. That means if you will carry out a tensile test, taking a piece of fabric, let's say extending in warp direction, you will get a typical load extension curve as you see here. This is a typical load extension curve of a woven fabric. This characteristics curve has three distinct zones. Let's this origin point O, you can mention here O. OA is one zone, A to B is another zone, B to C is another zone. This OA, we call it interfiber friction effect. Initially, when a fabric is loaded with a tensile load, the resistance offered by the fabric to deformation is mainly dominated by inter-yarn friction. So we call it frictional restraint or interfiber friction effect. So OA from origin to this point, where you can see the modulus is very high compared to this zone. I have explained you last class modulus, how we make out modulus is low or high. If the curve tilts towards load axis or stress axis, modulus is high. If curve tilts towards extension axis or strain axis, modulus is low. So as you can see here, initially the curve tilts more towards load axis, means high resistance to deformation. And as I said, this initial deformation is mainly because of interfiber friction. As we go on increasing the load further, the friction between yarns are overcome, then yarn gets straightened. As you know, in fabric, yarns are not straight. A crimp is already introduced to the fabric. A crimp is already introduced to the yarn in the fabric. So when after applying further load, what happens? This crimp is first removed. We call it decrimping. That's why the curve tilts towards extension axis, because decrimping means straightening the yarn. So straightening the yarn does not need a very high force. It is simply there is a crimp. Crimp means yarn is in wavy form and it will be straightened. With a small load, the yarn gets straightened and it continues from A to B. By the time your curve reaches the point B, all the yarns which were crimped inside the fabric got straightened, and that's why this zone A to B is called decrimping region. Means yarns in the fabric get straightened, crimp is removed. We call it decrimping zone. When all the crimps are removed at the point B, then further loading will cause the extension of yarn. We call it elastic extension, or we give it a name called yarn extension region. Actual yarn gets extended after this point B, that is after decrimping zone. That means yarn extended means how long it will be extended. At some point the yarns will be broken, means fabric is broken. So the third zone BC is called yarn extension region. This is how the typical load extension curve of a plain woven fabric is explained. Initial origin to A is interfiber friction, A to B is decrimping, B to C is yarn extension zone. I hope you understand this, and this is very important. Many times in future we will refer to this diagram. Try to remember, and it is very useful to characterize any woven fabric tensile deformation, how it creates three different distinct zones in load extension characteristics curve. That is what I explained, is written here. Apart from the characteristics curve, what else? To discuss the correlation between the mechanical properties of fabric and their constituent yarns. This is purely what is written here, three statement based on actual experimental result, observations, basically observations in a tensile test of a fabric. The first observation, initial extension, let's say order of 1%, is mainly governed by the removal of crimp from the yarn. So 1% means 1% of the total extension of the fabric. Normally, it's a very typical values. Normally, it's not exactly 1%. It could be 1.2% or 0.8% or 1.3%, something like this. So what has been observed by carrying out tensile test of a woven fabric? What is observed is the initial extension of the order of 1% of the total extension is mainly governed by removal of crimp from yarn. That is what you have seen is decrimping. Next, the stress strain behavior mainly concerned at large extension, that is of the order of 10%. So large extension means here. That is the yarn extension, where the yarn takes maximum load. In the region 0 to 10% extension, large discrepancy occurs between theoretical and experimental results. If it is assumed that yarn has no bending stiffness and only acts as a tension transmitting agent. What this point is, I will explain, try to understand. In the region 0 to 10% of extension, normally when we carry out tensile test of different fabrics, we find there is a huge discrepancy. Means every sample or every fabric produced from different yarns behave differently. The reason is written here. What the reason is, it says it is mainly due to the bending stiffness. As I said, initial extension is due to decrimping. Crimping and decrimping is nothing but bending and debending. When crimp is inserted, yarn bends. When crimp is removed, yarn also bends. That means this zone is mainly governed by bending stiffness of yarn in the fabric. Okay, so these are the three major observations during tensile test. Role of bending rigidity in tensile properties. So role of bending rigidity means role of bending rigidity of a yarn in the fabric. The resistance to extension in the earlier zone is completely dependent on rigidity of the yarn themselves. There is no need to explain. I already told, just now I told you. Mainly, it depends on rigidity of yarn. Rigidity is nothing but bending rigidity, stiffness. Therefore, it has been proved that initial load elongation behavior of fabric can be predicted from the bending rigidity of the constituent yarns. So initial load elongation behavior means initial modulus. This zone from here to here. What will be this nature of this curve? Means this curve will be in this position or will be in this position, or will be in this position. Means it will show higher modulus, lower modulus, or somewhere in between. It will all depend on what is the bending rigidity of the yarn. Because initial deformation, initial resistance to deformation is mainly because of decrimping. That is the point written here. Initial Young's modulus is here important while determining the cloth behavior converting from fabric to garment. This is another point. I don't know whether you can understand or not at this stage. Remember, this is a very important point, particularly from apparel fabric point of view. If we are testing the tensile strength of a apparel fabric which will be converted to a garment which we wear, for that fabric, this initial behavior, initial modulus is very, very important. The reason being, as you have seen, this initial zone is only 1% of the total extension. So when we wear a cloth, how much we try to extend? We try to extend means because of our routine work. We walk, we sit down, or we do some work. So there is some movement to the fabric. There is some stretch to the fabric. How much is that stretch? Is in the order, mainly is the order of 1% of the total extension. Fabric gets more stretch if we go for sports, if you go for swimming, if you go for stretching. So that could be order of 5%, 6%, 10%, or even 30%. But normal work in which the cloth we wear is stretched very little, and if the fabric has less resistance in this zone, which we call initial Young's modulus, if the fabric gets extended initially easily, then we find the fabric is comfortable. If at this initial stage fabric puts more resistance to deformation, the fabric gives a uncomfortable effect. That is what is in the point here. Initial Young's modulus is here important while determining a cloth behavior. Behavior means we feel comfortable or uncomfortable. Okay. Now, from here, the approach to mechanics start. First, we will understand what happens to the geometry of a fabric during extension. So extension means fabric is subjected to a tensile load. To understand the behavior of cloth during extension, it is necessary to know the geometrical changes during such extension. Means what will happen to the geometry? I have already told you. Geometry means this one. If the fabric will be extended, let's say in warp direction, what will happen to all the geometrical parameters? That is where the point is written here. Second, these changes should allow extension of yarn and compress of yarn at intersection region. So you might be wondering where this compression comes. We are extending. We have applied tensile load. Fabric should be extended. Then why the yarn is compressed? Which also you have seen. At intersection point, when the fabric will be extended, we have discussed in rigid thread model. At crossover points, warp will exert some pressure on weft and vice versa. We call it inter-yarn pressure. We have also determined the formula V1, V2, 8 sine square theta. You know that formula if you have already derived. That means at crossover points, there is a inter-yarn pressure. Inter-yarn pressure causes compression. But when such geometrical changes are most important, the forces are relatively low, Therefore, extension and compression of yarn considered negligible. Initially, basically for small load, we try to ignore it. But if it is a large load, we have to consider it. Okay. So with this background, now we'll start discuss a first model. Tensile properties theoretical model. So look at the diagram. If this fabric will be extended in warp direction, for example, so which parameter will change? If it will be extended in this direction, the cross section will be compressed in transverse direction and it will be extended in this direction. If it is extended in this direction, the P value will change, and if there is a decrease in this direction, the H value will change. And also, when these P and H will change, it will cause corresponding change in L and also in theta. So when P and H will change, P is the dimension in the direction of loading, H is the dimension in transverse direction. As we said, when the fabric will be extended, there will be inter-yarn pressure. Inter-yarn pressure will cause flattening of the yarn cross section. So flattening of yarn cross section means change in thickness. Change in thickness is nothing but H1 plus D1, H2 plus D2. That means H value will change because of the change of the diameter of yarn. So when a fabric is subjected to a tensile load, there will be a change in P and H. When these P and H will change from the geometrical relationship which we have derived in Pierce geometry, you will find there is a change in C and L. Change in H means change in C. You already know H1 is equal to 4 upon 3 P2 C1. Change in P means this angle will change, so L will change. And how these changes are taking place, that we will determine. Relating to LPC, our fundamental equation which we have derived is L is equal to P into 1 plus C. So here I have written the equation irrespective of warp and weft. You know, when it will be warp and weft, suffix 1 and 2 will be added. In general, it is L is equal to P into 1 plus C. And also H is equal to 4 upon 3 P root C. If H1, P2 C1, if H2, P1 C2. Taking the same assumptions, that is yarn is inextensible and incompressible, as extension and compression of yarn is negligible, that we are assuming. Just assumption, yarn is incompressible and inextensible. By using above equation, these two equations, if you differentiate means change in dimension and a small dimension. Modulus of several possible variations in loading of cloth can be estimated. You know what is modulus? Modulus is nothing but stress by strain. So strain can be determined by changing dimension, that is L2 del L, H2 del H, and load is applied. So what happens to the equation? This is the fundamental approach. If a fabric will be subjected to tensile load, there will be a change in L and H. and we know L is expressed by this, H is expressed by this from Pierce geometry. We'll determine this for a fabric. So to determine this, and from this change, in order to find the modulus of the fabric, modulus is nothing but stress by strain, we consider this model. Let us consider a piece of fabric as you see here in this diagram. This is a case study of biaxial loading under large force. Force is too large. I will explain why we are taking too large force. So let F1 is force per thread in warp direction. F2 is force per thread in wave direction. This fabric is loaded bidirectionally, means there is a load in warp direction, there is a load in wave direction also. We call it biaxial loading. N1 is the number of warp yarn in the fabric, M2 is the number of weft yarn in the fabric. So this is a fabric where F1 and F2 the load applied in warp and wave direction respectively. This fabric has N1 number of warp yarn and N2 number of weft yarn. Let P1 is warp spacing, P2 is weft spacing. You know already what is P1, P2. Distance between two consecutive warp, P1. Distance between two consecutive weft, P2. So fabric width is N1 into P1. We have in this fabric sample, the which you see here. This is a fabric sample, piece of fabric. In this fabric, N1 is the number of warp, N2 is the number of weft, P1 is warp spacing, P2 is weft spacing. So what will be width of the fabric? N1 into P1. And what will be length of this fabric? N2 into P2. So we got length and breadth. Now the forces acting in warp and wave direction are N1 F1, N2 F2, because what we have assumed, F1 is force per thread in warp direction, F2 is force per thread in wave direction. Since we have N1 warp, so total force in warp direction is N1 into F1, total force in wave direction is N2 F2. Okay, you have got what is force applied, you have got the dimension. Our aim is to find out modulus. Modulus is nothing but stress by strain. Stress is nothing but force generated. So application of load. Strain is nothing but change in dimension. Because we are interested to find out the modulus. Modulus is stress over strain. In strain we find change in dimension, del L over L, and stress is force per unit width here. I will explain you what will be unit of stress in this case subsequently, but this is the load applied. If it is warp direction N1 P1, if it is wave direction N2 P2, that means N1 P1, sorry, N1 F1 and N2 F2, and dimension is N1 P1 and N2 P2 in warp and wave direction respectively. So what will happen after deformation? Let our P changes to P1 plus dP1. We are extending. This is a biaxial loading. So biaxial loading means there will be a change in P1, there will be a change in P2. So let P1 changes to P1 plus dP1, P2 changes to P2 plus dP2, and we are assuming the force is very large. If the force is very large in the system, total internal energy will be work done by F1 and F2. Simultaneously, we have applied load F1 and F2. So work done will be total internal energy in the fabric. How much energy is consumed in the fabric. It will be sum total of work done by these two forces. We are applying a force in warp direction and we are applying simultaneously another force in wave direction. So work done by warp yarn force, work done by wave yarn direction force, sum total will be equal to total internal energy in the fabric. For a small deformation, the extension in warp direction will be N2 dP2. The extension in wave direction will be N2 dP2, N1 dP1. I hope you all understand from same geometry. So this is change in dimension. This is change in dimension. This is change in dimension in warp direction, change in dimension in wave direction. Because the fabric is subjected to two loads, one in warp, one in weft, it is a biaxial loading. Now look at this is very important for this model. We have already taken assumption in this model. Look at, if you recall, assumption is forces acting in warp and wave direction N1, F1 respectively is very large. The model is biaxial loading under large forces. So when the force is too large, what will happen? The fabric will be broken, it will be smashed. And if the fabric is broken, it will be smashed. What is total energy? Total energy will be zero. Change in internal energy will be zero. There will be no strain energy stored. As long as we are straining, but material is not broken into pieces, so strain energy goes on storing inside the material. If the load applied is too large, then fabric is divided into pieces because of this large force. The strain energy stored in the system is zero. That is what written here. When F1 and F2 are sufficiently large, the internal energy can be ignored. Internal energy ignored means zero. This statement we have written in mathematical form. Work done by warp, work done by weft. See, total internal energy, work done by warp, work done by weft. F1 is force applied, F2 is force applied, warp and wave direction. This is force applied and this is extension. Work done is nothing but force into displacement. That is what written here. N1 F1 N2 dP2, N2 F2 N1 dP1 is equal to 0. 0 is nothing but when the force is too large, change in internal energy is 0. Sum total of these two work done is equal to 0, which will give you F1 dP2 plus F2 dP1 is equal to 0. N1 N2 N1 N2 is common in both. So you will get F1 dP1 F2 dP2 is equal to 0. That means dP1 over dP2 is equal to minus F1 over F2. Let this be your equation number 1. We have assumed in this yarn is inextensible. So what is the length of yarn in the fabric? Look at, this is the yarn length. Look at my cursor, L1. And if the yarn is inextensible, L1 is invariant, means del L is equal to 0. And if you assume yarn is incompressible, no change in transverse dimension. Transverse dimension here, H1 by 2, H2 by 2, means complete will be H1 and H2. Means no change in H values. Yarn is incompressible, means DH is equal to 0. means H is also invariant. Then we have, since we know L1 is equal to P2 into 1 plus C1, our first Pierce geometry equation, substitute value, differentiate it, del L1 will be del L, which is 0. Differentiate it, dP2 1 plus C1 plus P2 into dC1. dC1 will be minus 1 plus C1 into dP2 by P2. I'm changing slide now. Similarly, for the wave triangle, just change suffix 1 to 2, 2 to 1. You will get dC2 is equal to this much. Look at, we got dC1 when yarn was extended in warp direction is this. If similarly, if you want to find out deformation in wave direction, dC2 will be minus 1 plus C2 over into dP1 minus dP1 over P1. Okay. We know H1 plus H2 is equal to D. And H1 is this, H2 is this. We all know these equation in the fabric geometry. So H1 plus H2 will be this. Substitute the value of these dC1, dC2. We are just doing nothing, just substituting the value. You will get this equation. Rearrange this. This is nothing but simply H1 plus H2. If you rearrange this, what you will get after substituting dC1, dC2, simply simplification, nothing has been done here. There is no concept inside. Just we have taken H1 plus H2, substitute the value of a dC1, dC2. We have already found out value of a dC2. We have already found out the value of a dC1. This is dC1. This is dC2. We have taken H1 plus H2, substitute the value of a dC1, dC2, and go on simplifying. Which will give us the equation in the form of this. dP1 over dP2 is equal to 1 minus C1 over 1 minus C2 into square root C2 over C1. This equation shows an increase in the thread spacing in one direction of the fabric gives decrease in the thread spacing in the cross direction due to change in crimp, which you can yourself realize. That's why before discussing this theory, I have explained you what happens to fabric dimension when it is loaded, where I have shown you, even I had given you an example of auxetic fabric, which does not happen in case of auxetic fabric. In auxetic fabric, if you extend the fabric in warp direction, in wave direction, it also get extended. But in a normal fabric like any other normal material, if you extend in one direction, you will find the transverse direction get contracted. So this equation is analogous to the crimp interchange equation discussed earlier. If you recall, in Pierce geometry, we have discussed crimp interchange equation. We have plot the curve between C1, C2. If crimp in wave direction increases, the crimp in wave direction decreases. The nature of the curve relationship we have all discussed in crimp interchange equation earlier. The ratio lateral contraction to longitudinal extension, that is dP1 over dP2. Lateral contraction to longitudinal extension is called Poisson's ratio. You must have come across this term in physics. Poisson's ratio is nothing but lateral contraction to longitudinal extension. And this value becomes negative if the material is auxetic material. It doesn't happen in auxetic, it is opposite. So the Poisson's ratio in case of auxetic material comes negative. We call it NPR, negative Poisson's ratio. Any material which gives you negative Poisson's ratio, it is auxetic material. But a normal material dP1 dP2, which is called Poisson's ratio, is not negative, it's positive. Now I am changing the slide. So this was your equation number 2. This was your equation number 1. Here dP1 over dP2 is this. Here dP1 over dP2 is this. From equation number 1 and 2, you can find out equation number 3. To more simplify this equation, 1 minus C1 over 1 minus C2, we take 1. Be practical. What is C1? Crimp in warp. C2, crimp in weft. How much is crimp? You have already seen. It is always less than 1 in fraction. Crimp is 3%. 3% means 0.03. Crimp is 5%, means 0.05. 1 minus 0.05 or 1 minus 0.03. Not much change. So this remains 1 upon 1. We assume this value as 1. Just to simplify this equation, it becomes F1 over F2 approximately equal to root C2 over root C1. So you have to remember this. Nothing to be surprised. Crimp value. Several times we have seen in many fabrics maximum 3%, 4%, 5% or 6% means crimping fraction is 0.06, 0.05 or 0.03. 1 minus 0.05 or 0.03 is same, can be considered as 1. Here is also 1. So this equation reduces to approximately this value. Therefore, we can write, summarizing all these three equations, dP1 over dP2 is equal to 1 minus C1 over 1 minus C2 into this is approximately equal to C2 over C1. If you plot the curve between C1 and C2, which you have already seen in crimp interchange equation, at this stage, I'm just repeating this. You get this equal to a constant crimp interchange equation, recall. And we find D is a straight line. So this is C2, this is C1, which is obvious, increasing C2 decreases C1 and vice versa. This is a normal trend which you have already seen in crimp interchange equation. Same thing is written here. Okay, so we'll stop here. This is another thing which we'll discuss from the next class. Change in crimp height with change in peak spacing. What will happen to the fabric is a different phenomena, and it needs some description to begin with. So I close it here. From next class, we'll start from there. Okay, you can log out now.
Sir,
हाँ
sir, can you release the minor marks because the audit window has also attained.
थोड़ा सा एक दो दिन और लगेगा.
Okay, sir.
हाँ, मैं मंडे या ट्यूसडे को आपको दे दूंगा दोनों का, ये भी हेयर ऑफ टेक्सटाइल स्ट्रक्चर भी और फैब्रिक का भी. ठीक है.
Okay, sir. Thank you.